becoming free of filth. But Chesbrough and his sewers do more than just keep cities clean. They prove that big infrastructure is essential for making cities function. All around the world, new underground building projects are begun. In 1863, in London, the first steam train travels under the city. In Paris, the metro opens in 1900, followed soon by the New York subway. Pedestrian walkways and auto freeways, followed by electrical highways and fiber optic networks, are created around the world. Today, whole parallel worlds exist underground, powering the cities above. It's a revolution. Chesbrough's sewers proved to be an inspirational feat of engineering. But unfortunately, they had a bit of a teething problem. The sewers were draining into Lake Michigan, which was the water supply for the city. Chesbrough may have made the streets clean, but the water was still filthy. And it wasn't long before the problems became apparent. In the 1870s, this was a regular sight in the bathrooms of Chicago. The water was so filthy with sewage that it was regularly filled with dead fish. One observer reported that the fish would actually come out cooked, and locals would refer to their bathroom water affectionately as chowder. As you might have guessed, mixing raw sewage with drinking water was not such a good idea, and not just because of the dead fish or the smell. The problem was the water could kill you. But most of the Chicagoans of the time were blissfully unaware that putting waste in drinking water was so deadly. No one could see the hidden killers that lurked in dirty water. While Chesbrough's first sewers let Chicago's waste mix with its drinking water, today, Chicago does everything it can to keep the two separate. I'm standing above the latest addition to Chicago's sewer network. It's an epic project. They've been working on it for almost 40 years, and it's cost nearly $4 billion. But to understand the true scale of this project, I need to go stand in this little yellow cage. Around 5 times a year, heavy storms roll in that can dump more than 7 billion gallons of water on Chicago in just a few hours. This causes the sewer network, first begun by Ellis Chesbrough, to overflow. With nowhere to go, this mixture of rainwater and sewage can spill out into people's homes and pollute the waterways, causing huge problems. This network of tunnels are designed to store and transport this huge influx of dirty water and keep the city clean. Hidden from view, this space will keep millions of people safe. Now this is like a cathedral. This is the Church of Engineering right here. Look how immense this is. This huge project has over 500 people working on it, and Kevin Fitzpatrick is one of the project managers. This looks like the set of a science fiction film, right? I mean, this is an amazing space to work in.
Sort of the air makes it feel like you're on a science fiction set here. We're about 300 feet underground, and it's always cool and damp here, so you get a little bit of steam coming.
In a big storm, how much water would be in this space?
This thing would be completely full.
Be completely
Yeah,
full.
polluted stormwater would be coming through that tunnel, dropping right down here, and shooting out into the reservoir.
But during a major storm, so much water falls that even these vast tunnels are not big enough to hold it. So an even bigger space is required to deal with all the water.
So here we go into the quarry.
Wow. It's very hard to just tell the size of it. You walk out of those tunnels and then you're in this unbelievable, massive space. And how much water can this thing hold?
7.9 billion gallons worth of water when it's done.
In a big storm, how high would the water eventually get?
The water will get 300 feet above our heads.
It'll go all the way up to the top of the
Almost all the way up to ground level.
This is like the world's largest bathtub here. This
It is the world's largest bathtub.
So it's basically just this kind of giant buffer. You've got a storm, you can't deal with all that water, you got to put it somewhere.
We need somewhere to put it that's not polluting the waterways and that's not backing up in people's basements. This is the location.
It's an amazing solution. Ellis Chesbrough would have loved this, right?
He was all about big projects like this, and he would have loved a project like this, I'm sure.
Looking at the scale and expense of this project, you can understand just how hard it is to get clean water in fast-growing cities. But today's planners have a simple but crucial piece of information that Chesbrough didn't. Human waste in drinking water spreads disease. To keep people safe, you need to do everything possible to stop the two from mixing. Discovering this one fact was the single most important breakthrough in our understanding of clean. The story of how we made that breakthrough? Well, it begins with a somewhat rock and roll choice of breakfast. To tell you the truth, I don't normally have beer for breakfast, but actually, for thousands of years, this was the healthiest way to start the day. Our ancestors liked to have a drink or two. Benjamin Franklin, in his diaries, recalled how his colleagues would have a pint of beer before breakfast, and then they'd have a pint with breakfast and a pint between breakfast and lunch. And of course, you have to have some beer with lunch. By the way, this is the point at which I need a nap, but they would charge on and have a pint around 6 p.m., and then of course, a pint to celebrate the end of a hard day's work. Now, this may seem a little excessive, but it's not quite as crazy as you might think. The beer brewing process kills disease. Although no one realizes this in the middle of the 19th century, it means if you live in an unclean environment, beer is a very sensible drink. This quirky fact that drinking beer can be safer than water will help transform our understanding of clean. Beer will prove vital in solving the mystery of one of the deadliest killers in Victorian London.
When we think about killers in the dark corridors of 19th century London, we might think of Jack the Ripper. But the real killer that haunted the streets was cholera. Between 1831 and 1860, cholera killed more than 140,000 people in Britain. And it did so in a truly horrific way.
There's a particularly harrowing account from the time of a cholera victim near to death. It reads, "The mind within remains untouched and clear, shining strangely through the glazed eyes. a spirit looking out in terror from a corpse. Cholera is a horrific disease that still kills almost 100,000 people worldwide every year. But in the 19th century, doctors profoundly misunderstand its cause. The medical leaders of the time are convinced cholera is spread through the stink in the air. Proving them wrong will be a lifelong battle for this man, John Snow, a medic from the north of England whose experiences as a young man will lead to a radical new theory about the spread of disease.
As an 18-year-old trainee doctor, Snow spends nearly a year in the mines of Killingworth in the northeast of England, treating miners who've been stricken with cholera. It's not the most pleasant way to start a medical practice, but what he experiences in the mine will spark an idea that will follow him for the rest of his career.
Snow is breathing in the same putrid air as the infected miners, and yet, despite the time he spends with them, he doesn't seem to get ill.
Looking around at the appalling sanitary conditions that the miners worked in, the filth and the dirty water, something clicks in Snow's mind. It's just a glimmer of an idea, really, and it might have stayed that way had he spent the rest of his life in a small town. But Snow's